Hello and welcome. This is James from the DSO Imager channel, and tonight I'm going to give a brief review of the ZWO ASI1600, specifically the Mono Pro version. So what I'm going to do in this review, I'm not going to worry about going over specs or anything like that. That information's out there for anyone that wants to look it up. I'm just going to show examples of pictures that I've taken, individual subs, raw files, stacked files, and process files, just to kind of share my experiences with it and to demonstrate what can be done with the camera. There's a lot of options out there, especially in the mono realm now of CMOS cameras. So I'm hoping this review will be useful to anyone that finds themselves in the market or are considering going to a mono CMOS camera for astrophotography. Now, I've used this camera with two different telescopes, a 70mm refractor, the Stellaview SV70T, and a Celestron Edge HD8. At one end I'm at 336mm focal length, and at the other, with the 0.7 reducer, I'm at like 1422 millimeters. So I think these examples will be pretty good to give you a general idea of what to expect. Alright, so first we'll take a look at M51, and this is a stacked 11 hours worth of luminance with the Celestron Edge. Now, I gotta mention early on, I was new to this camera and new to the Edge, and my collimation wasn't quite right. So some of these early pictures, they're not going to look as sharp as certainly as my more recent stuff looks. And on top of everything, the mount that I was using, which was my first EQ6R, ultimately ended up getting replaced by Skywatcher because it was having tracking issues. So the tracking wasn't exactly the best either for these pictures. But with that aside, I think you can still get a good idea of what the sensor on this camera is capable of. So we'll zoom in. This actually doesn't look too bad. And I'm in a Bortle class 5. I thought I was in a 4. I'm actually in a 5. And so, I mean, the noise is not bad here. You can see a gradient that's thanks to the light pollution. And this is a processed version of it. I don't consider it one of my better images, but again, there were some challenges with the data, but I think it gives you a good idea of what you can expect with this camera. And let's take a look at M81. So this is a single stacked sub with it is calibrated. What is this, 90 seconds? So when this camera first came out, I mean, it was noted for being very clean. I mean, that's not bad at all for 90 seconds with an 8-inch f7 scope. And here's just 1 hour and 12 minutes worth of these 90-second shots. And I mean, this is unprocessed, just stacked and auto-stretched. And here's a completed processing of it. Some of these colors are off. You can see that here, and I do believe this is due to the collimation problems I had mentioned earlier. And I think this is a recent reprocess. So basically taking the same data and just running it again more recently. I don't know which is different. I mean, which is better. I did a better job with the stars. And let's see. Let's take a look at everyone's favorite here. So we got a little bit less than an hour and a half of M42. I took this picture. This is like 2 years ago now. So I'd like to think I've come a ways with my skill in processing and even with capturing. But I mean, it's pretty good. The core is not blown out. It may look like it's blown out here, but well, I guess it is a little blown out right there in the center. And I do believe I took, when I captured this image, I did take some probably 15-second subs or whatever for that, and you'll see that in the completed image. But on a nice bright target, I mean, for just 1 hour here, the noise is not bad at all. And this is the finished image. So yeah, see, of course, not blown out there. This is with the regular ZWO LRGB filters too, so not even high-end filters, just the cheap ones. I feel like the color is pretty good out of this. And then, of course, close to Orion's everyone's other favorite, right? Horsehead. And this is another image that I've taken, it was close to 2 years ago, I want to say. I don't remember how much exposure time is in this, but it's not a lot. It's not like the stuff that I take pictures of now. And this is with a 5 nanometer Astrodon filter. And you can see the on the tack here, the reflections are not bad at all. You may see a little bit of a square here. And so the 1600, one of the weak parts of a 1600 is that that chip doesn't have any anti-reflective coatings on it. So it produces on bright stars a weird diffraction pattern, and you're going to see it in this 03 when I pull it up. But other than that, the HA is really nice. It's really clean. Looks pretty good. Let's take a look at that 03. Alright, so we got two things going on with this 03. We have this huge halo. And this may be the astronomic 03 filter that I'm taking, that I'm using in this one. But also, you can see that pattern, and it is definitely more, or it shows up more with blue light than it does with red. And so this square here, that is a classic trait of this sensor. And let's take a look at the S2. So again, you can see that strange diffraction pattern in the S2 as well. Now, if we compare the S2 to the HA, I mean, it's almost non-existent on the HA. You get a hint of it, but it's not bad. But I mean, reflections and halos, they can be worked with in software. So this is, yeah, so this is a process that I did of this data in May 31, 2020. So this was a few months after I had taken this picture. And I mean, the data again it doesn't look bad at all. I think the camera does a nice job here. It picked up all this dust down in here. And so you can see, you know, a little bit of it, but I mean, I don't think it takes away from the image too badly. And that giant halo, the way I dealt with it back then is I just mixed in a little bit of the HA, I think like 10%, with the 03, and by just doing that, it was enough to take care of that halo. I didn't do anything else special. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you know that lately, for the past year or so, I've been a real fan of leaving some green in your SHO images, and I reprocessed this one recently just to see what I can do with it and get some green in there. So here's a reprocess. It was a quick reprocess. There's no noise reduction in here, which is actually another good example of showing how this sensor handles noise. So with no noise reduction at all, you definitely see a grain in there, but you gotta zoom in to see it. And I handled this this a little bit differently. Instead of mixing in HA with 03, I kept this straight SHO, and I just made I used a range mask to pick up this halo, isolate this, and then I just pulled back on curves in the 03 filter. And, I mean, there are better, more effective ways to deal with a halo. This was kind of a quick and dirty way to address it, but I think it did all right. I could probably do more. This image here definitely pops more than this one does, but I'm kind of digging the greens as usual. Alright, how about a wide field galaxy season target? Arcarian's chain. How does this one look? So again, ZWO filters for LRGB. And I was fighting a gradient. You don't actually see it too bad, but the gradient was pretty strong on the bottom of the image. We'll get in. I mean, so you've seen this noise profile. This is what all of my 1600 images look like without using any noise reduction. And this was taken right with that SV70T. The mount was an AVX. And I don't remember how many hours. I think it was a little bit over 20, I want to say, if I remember correctly. Now, one of my more recent images, and this one I'm actually pretty happy with the way it came out. So this has got like 37 hours of exposure. It's all narrowband, just standard SHO, and I was quite pleased with the way this one came out. So I think with this camera, it really does well if you're shooting bright targets and you pile on a lot of time. And let's zoom in and get a look at the noise. And this is a single sub, and this is not calibrated. So this is just a straight sub directly out of the camera. Okay, now lastly, I want to show some comparison to two other cameras. Now, Isaac from the Iceman Astro channel, he recently picked up an ASI1600 mono, and he graciously offered his raw data to me so that I can process it, play with it. In this example, this 6200 is also representative of what the crop sensor version, the ASI2600. They're both using the same sensor, or I should say same sensor technology. So these are examples of what's currently out there right now, and this region is similar region. This is, you can see, this is a frame I took of a 4-panel mosaic recently, and you got a little bit of the Crescent Nebula there. And he's got the Satyr region here with the Butterfly Nebula. This area is a touch brighter than this area. The scopes are similar. This is my 70mm SV70T. This is his William Optics Z73. He's not using a reducer in this picture, so this is at like 420mm, give or take. So a little bit deeper, a little bit slower, right? I don't know, F5 or something like that, versus this is F4.8. And if I remember correctly, he's got like 8.5 hours of HA here, and this is 7 hours of HA here, and this is with an Astrodon 5nm, and this is with an Astronomic 6nm. So not exactly an apples to apples. Well, maybe it would be like a Fuji and a Granny Smith comparison. So anyway, I thought this would be good because we can see, compare this camera to the latest, and this is just auto stretch. There's no processing involved here. And I mean, the difference is quite stark. This is also not processed, right? Just auto stretched. So you can see the difference here, how far the cameras have come. This is so clean compared to the 1600. I mean, when you zoom out, it's not, I mean, it's still noticeable, but getting in, I mean, it's the difference is extremely apparent. So a big thanks to Isaac. Definitely check out his channel. I'll have a link to his channel in my description. His video where he revealed this camera and this shot is just phenomenal. It's fantastic work. So anyway, yeah, check him out. And then I have a comparison here of, well, not really a direct comparison. This is the 294 mono that I've been using with my Celestron Edge now. And what I wanted to show here is that the noise is very clean, very similar to the 6200. The 6200 and the 2600 are using, they are newer technology than what the 294 is, but the 294 is still newer than the 1600. The main difference is that these two cameras are front or backlit, and the 1600 is front lit. What that basically means is that there's some circuitry in the way on the sensor, and so the 1600 is less efficient at gathering light than these newer backlit sensors. And so you can see that. You can see the efficiency hit when making a comparison to it. You can definitely see that in there. But the one thing that you do get with this 9400 that you don't get is we got amp glow. Right? If I pull that raw file here, the 1600. Right now, I mean, these are two completely different optical systems. This is an 8-inch SCT, and this is a 70mm refractor, but they're both 600 seconds. So yeah, I mean, you get amp glow here, right? A lot of people think that taking calibration files with these newer cameras is optional, and yeah, you can get away with it, I think, sometimes. You definitely cannot get away with it on a 294. But I mean, you can see here, this is the calibrated stacked file. If we go to where the amp glow is at, which is right here, I mean, the calibration files take care of it. It's just not something that you can skip. Okay, and so why did I bring this up with the other computer other cameras. Well, so if you're watching this video, if you're thinking about switching to mono, you're probably looking at this camera. Currently, if you were to buy brand new, the 1600 mono is pretty much the cheapest option out there, save for the ASI183 mono, which, I mean, that's a solid camera too, but it is a really small sensor. At least the 1600 gets you up to that 4/3 size. So, I mean, you're going to look at the 1600, you're going to look at the 294, which is a couple $100 more, or you're going to look at a 2600, which gets you up to a crop sensor size. And those are kind of the competitors of the 1600. So, for this discussion, I'll consider the 6200, which is the full frame, and the 2600, which is the crop sensor. I'll consider those the same, because, I mean, again, it's the same technology chip. The only difference is the size and, of course, the cost. If you have the money to buy either one of those cameras, if the budget's there, then the choice is simple. Go with one of those. There is a significant cost, even for the 2600, because you will need to get, at a minimum, 36mm filters. And those cost quite a bit more than the 1.24 inch, 1.25 inch filters that you can get away with on a 1600 and the 294. So, I mean, that's really the main calculus there. It's the cost. If you can afford to drop that money on a 2600, then that's the mono camera to get. That's the one that, the only one that beats it is the full frame, the 6200 right now. Things get a little bit more interesting if you're looking at the 294 mono version. So the 294 is definitely the superior camera, but the pixel size is a little bit off, or I should say a little bit different, right? It's got 2 bin modes, and you can go with the 4.6 or is it 4.5 micron, which is the default native size, or you can get the unlock driver and unlock it to 2.3 or whatever the small one is, and the 1600 pixel size kind of slots in between. So, I mean, depending on your telescope and your focal length, you may want to consider one of these other pixel sizes. It's a whole other can of worms I'm not going to go into right now. A lot of people advocate going bin 1 no matter what, and you have the whole argument about oversampled and undersampled. But those are things that you can research and determine whether or not it works for your camera. The honest truth is the 3.7 micron size of the 1600 and the 2600 and 6200. It's a really versatile size, and it fits with a lot of different image trains. So today, if I were to rank the cameras in order, right, the 26 and 6200 are number 1, the 294 mono would be number 2, and the 1600 comes up at the bottom as number 3. But that doesn't mean the 1600 is a bad camera. It's just showing its age a little bit. As mentioned, it is the cheapest, and especially on the used market, it is, I mean, I've seen them go for as low as $700, which is just insane. So, I mean, if you're looking to get into mono imaging at a very low price, the 1600 is still a very viable camera, and you can definitely do some very good images with this camera. All you have to do is go to Astrobin and do a search for ASI1600 and put the filter on there for image of the day or top pick, and it will see a whole ton of stuff out there. So the camera is definitely still viable. It's just not the best option out there unless you're looking for value. For value, I think it's quite high. So that's my review of the ASI1600 Mono Pro based on my experience with the camera. If anyone has any questions or comments, certainly comment down below. If you have questions that I did not address or anything else, please feel free. I have the community tab, and I'll go ahead and open up with a question on the community tab about what everyone's thoughts are on the 1600. So if you could just go ahead and comment on there, maybe we can get a discussion going on there, and maybe there's some other camera alternatives that I didn't think about that some people could look into. So anyway, that's all I have for tonight. So thank you all for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and have a good night.